There's no mafia. All right, look. Med, you're a grown woman. Almost. Some of my money comes from illegal gambling and whatnot.
So this is Louis, and no, I'm not dead, but usually when I step away for a couple weeks, it's because I take a week off, play some video games, do whatever, but usually I get into a bad mode where I keep recording, not liking the take, deleting the take, trying again, then moving to a different subject, doing the same thing, failing to record something that I find worthwhile, and then scrapping it, moving on, doing it again. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. So here's an attempt to try a new video, try something different, and revisit the issue of Loli. So I had someone send me this video by Brittany Venti, and I have to say that the problem with this video, which is called the Predator Problem, is that it is all over the place. And it's taking like 6 or 7 issues themselves and then conflating it all together. And as the reference goes, you know, cramming pieces into a puzzle, and they don't really fit, but slamming it anyways, trying to make it work. The problem isn't necessarily that there isn't crossover or a connection between the topics that she's mentioning, but she is claiming that there is a connection between all these things when I don't really think there is. Not to the degree where you're conflating all of these things, and it's all over the place. We're talking about OnlyFans, we're talking about Twitch and porn on that, we're talking about Loli itself, Loli as a legal issue, talking about VR, whatever, you know, people pretending to be virtual characters. It's a lot of conflation going on. And the problem is that the more topics you individually bring up, the less that you're making a coherent argument. The problem that I have with this video overall isn't even that I disagree with it entirely, because I think that there's several aspects of this video that I do agree with, but there's even topics such as like the VR streaming, whatever. I don't really understand it. I have no awareness of it. I've had people say to me that I've retweeted images of virtual streamers on my Twitter timeline, and I have no idea. I think one of the characters that I did was a rabbit, like a rabbit girl, whatever that would be. I had no idea that that person's some streamer. And just recently, and it's the topic of this video, it's Shark Loli, who is a virtual streamer. I would say that that's really one of the core aspects of this video that I have a problem with, because it really makes it disjointed, because I've talked about Lolicon. I've talked about the issues revolving around Lolicon itself in terms of it existing, of it being created, of it being distributed, the legal process around that. And what's funny in this video, and I'll save myself the time, is that I believe Brittany actually mentions the same cases that I've talked about in the past that have been prosecuted in the United States. And while I haven't looked at every individual case, she even admits in this that the guy pled guilty to possessing it. See, the problem is, if you look at the federal law, which I have in the past, and I'll see if I can dig up those videos to cite, even Andrew Torba, who banned it on Gab, will tell you that it's a gray area because it's never actually been fought. This has never gone before a court. This has never really been upheld. These people are pleading guilty because they're afraid of going to trial, being labeled a pedophile, and losing and going to prison for 15 years. So they plead guilty to a lesser charge, and they can claim that that's a conviction on these laws. The problem is that based on everything we know around them, if it was challenged, it would have to go to the Supreme Court, and there's a very good chance that it would get knocked down as not constitutional, because the existing precedents, whether it's on the creation of so-called child porn or the distribution of child porn, that does not meet the standard of what is being claimed in federal criminal code, what is child porn. According to the U.S. Criminal Code, it includes lolicon. The problem is that if you look at the Supreme Court cases specifically, which I've talked about in the past, they do not include that. The standards that exist deal in the realm of living, breathing victims. They do not delve into the realm of fictional characters. So when it comes to the legal issue itself, there is a distinction, and the problem is that in the United States, this has not gone before the Supreme Court to determine this. So this is one of the things in which Brittany is just flat out wrong. You can't just proclaim this to be legally recognized as child porn in the United States. That is not true. It is in the criminal code, but the problem is that they're not getting convictions based on that. People are pleading out. That's not the same. If you assault somebody, but you plead out to some other lesser charge, you can't then claim that, oh, we're getting convictions based on these laws. No, you're threatening people with going to trial based on those laws, and they're pleading out to other charges. It's not the same. It's not really a conviction under that criminal code. And the question then is, well, is this actually something that is illegal? And even, like I said, Andrew Torba, who banned it on his platform, he knows this. It's why he called it a gray area. It's never truly ever, as far as I'm aware, give me any example of this, it's never been brought before a court. It's never been appealed. It's never been debated. It's never been questioned. It exists in law, but it's not like this isn't readily available online. I used to have a sponsorship with a website where you could buy all the loli content you could ever want and import from Japan or buy it here. It's sold in the United States. It's created, it's distributed, it's consumed, so to say, in the United States. When it comes to the issue of legality, there's a big question as it relates to it. And the problem is that just because, let's say it was completely against the law, that doesn't then justify morally. It doesn't say that it's then the moral equivalent of you raping a living, breathing child. And that's the real issue that I take with a lot of the language being used here, is the moral equivalence. This is the same kind of debate that I had with Dankula and won on. Because if you think about this for more than 5 fucking seconds, you can draw a moral distinction. You can claim that it is, sure. Say that it's disgusting, that you don't like it, that you find it to be the sexualization of children. But even in your own video, you start to draw the moral distinction between petite Japanese women, as you show, and prepubescent characters.
The problem is it describes not only girls who may look youthful, like petite women who still look like women, but it also describes prepubescent girls, meaning children. So just to make it clear, I'm not talking about men who are attracted to women who are petite and small, because women who are petite and small still look like women even if they have smaller chests or flat chests. Even if they have smaller hips, they still appear as women. In this video, I am specifically addressing the men who are attracted to prepubescent cartoonized girls, because there is a big difference between a guy just preferring petite women who look youthful, that are of age, and men who are attracted to the depictions of prepubescent girls and trying to use a loophole to cope with their own pedophilia that they are in denial about.
Problem is, as you even say in your video, and it's why, like, I'm not screaming, I'm not angry, because it's like, there is nuance in this video, and I can't stand the fact that it's so all over the place that that's why it's getting, like, review bombed, and people are thumbing it down, or ratioed, whatever. Because it's an incoherent argument, because you're conflating too many things. There is a moral distinction between characters that are created that are prepubescent And then there is a difference between petite girls that are of even, let's say, questionable age. They're 16, they're 17, they're 18. Part of lolicon is the taboo of a girl being questionable in terms of age, that she's borderline, as it's called. That is a taboo. The issue is that taboo is not new to the United States. This is another thing that I've talked about when it comes to this content. If you go back to the 50s, there are dozens of popular songs, pop songs, that are specifically about that taboo, about borderline girls. And it's not like, you know, fucking Motorhead Jailbait or any of that shit from the 80s. I mean, it is 16 Candles, so-and-so, like, hey, you're now a woman. You're now fair game. You know, you're that girl across the street that, you know, I grew up with and now I'm in love with, and let's go out. And obviously in that era, the presumption is, well, we're going to date and we're going to get married and then we're going to have sex and have children. So there's a wholesome aspect to it. But the fact is that it's still an angle. It's still a taboo. It's not the simple fact of, well, this is an old matron or a spinster. This is someone who is just crossing the line of acceptability in terms of her age. So there is like a level of sexuality to it that is taboo. But the issue is that when that is popular and normal and just the mainstream and every fucking singer of the era is singing about it, in the 50s, how conservative it was then you have to realize that when it comes to the second category of borderline girls, girls who are just around the age of consent, 16, 17, 18, because if you look in the country, it's all over the place in our country, and I'm going to keep it localized to the United States. 16, 17, 18. It differs per state, but those are the ones that are the standard. Obviously, you can have predators, dirty old men, all that shit, where it can be predatory. You have grooming and that sort of thing. That's obvious. If you look at the UK, it's pretty clear that that's going on, and it's terrible. But when it comes to this particular content, even in the case that the content is dealing with that particular taboo, to where it is, you know, the gross kind of hentai where it's like, or ecchi, whatever, where it's forced or mind break or any of that stupid shit, just because that exists doesn't mean that that is naturally the thing that everyone is going to consume. I disagree that just because porn exists, that it's just like a magnet for everyone and it's going to radicalize us all. Because I'm well aware of all this different porn that exists that I'm not interested in. There's porn that exists that I'm not interested in, that doesn't arouse me, that doesn't interest me. And it can be as extreme as you want it to be. I'm never going to be interested in it. And if there is a fringe that is, or a demographic that is, I don't think that you can correlate that with rape or sexual assault or sexual criminality. I don't think that there is a one-in-one correlation that you can draw, because the fact is that there, how many millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of men are consuming porn and are not sexually assaulting, molesting, raping women. This is another part of the video where it's just totally out of left field, where I really don't think you have any basis to say that. Is porn having a negative effect on men or on American society or on societies in general? Maybe that's an argument where there is an argument that you can make, that it is having a negative effect. You know, to me, it then launches into the question of, well, just because it is having a negative effect doesn't mean that we should necessarily ban it or make it criminal or anything else. And the problem is with this video is that you're kind of bouncing between those things. You're bouncing around between whether you think that something should be done, or you're just drawing light to the fact that it is a problem, or you think it may be a problem. You're bouncing between those things, and that's really, I would say it's probably one of the reasons why people are going to call you an SJW and all this shit, is because you're playing around with the idea that you want to ban it. You are not making a coherent argument to what you think should or should not be done. as it relates to all these different things, or the question of what you find to be necessarily unacceptable but you want to leave alone versus something you think should be banned. And I'll give you a good example of where I would agree, because like I said, there's parts of this video that I agree with. In the past, I've complained about the fact that there is cam whores, basically, on Twitch, marketing to underage boys. I find that to be wildly inappropriate, and I would ban that. I do not think that on a platform where overwhelmingly you have a lot of young men, you should not have cam whores on that website. I really, especially when you're like tipping them and shit like that, with your parents' credit card and shit. I find that wildly predatory and inappropriate. But as far as I can see, that is part of the bread and butter of Twitch. Like, part of the ethos of Twitch is it is acceptable to have cam whores, softcore cam whores on this website that are baiting and teasing young men to spend their parents' money to tip them. Like, it's softcore cam whoring. And like I say, I genuinely find that to be an ethical issue. But the problem is that it's just Twitch. Like, there's nothing you can do. I don't use Twitch. I don't support Twitch. I don't follow anybody on Twitch. I've had people suggest that I use it. I don't. I don't want to use Twitch. I don't like Twitch. And that is one of the main reasons. Is you got all these cam whores that got all these managers and shit, or whatever, the people that moderated. They got all of them in their pocket because they're a bunch of fucking leftist soy boys. And I've seen this on other channels where they just run amok and they do whatever they want. They violate the terms of service all the time. And they just get away with it because, like I said, the soy boys back them up. That issue in and of itself is something that I completely agree with as an issue. And you bring it up in this video, but the problem is that, again, like, it doesn't fit. That part does not fit within the category of lolicon. Like, it is just out of left field. It's something I agree with, but what does it have to do with anything that you're saying here? If this is a complaint about pornography, then make that video and talk about lolicon, but don't bring up lolicon and then segue into that, pivot into that, and then pivot out, and it's like, what? What the fuck did this have to do with anything? Because if it had to do with these VR, streamers or whatever, put them together. You didn't do that. You talked about the one, and then fucking, 10 minutes later, you're talking about the other. It's all over the place. And like I say, I don't think you can mesh those two together. I don't think you can connect those two. I think young boys on Twitch watching cam whores and these VR YouTubers with 40-year-old men, pedophiles or whatever, an audience, obviously those are two separate things. Those are two separate assertions by you. And I don't see the connection. So, like I say, the argument is incoherent to that degree. Where I agree completely with the one. With the other one, I don't have enough knowledge to say one way or another. I don't watch any of these VR whatever. And I don't really know what their audience is. I don't even know what they do. Are they like lolicon streams or like hentai streams or something? Like, I don't know what they are. And you never showed anything. You said that there was like an upskirt shot of a loli on some stream with the shark loli. But I'm sorry, that's not good enough. That's not good enough to validate your point. Because from the content that you showed, I just looked at this and said, well, I'm not interested in this. This looks boring as fuck. So I don't know why anyone would watch this. And you claiming that it's because these people are pedophiles, why wouldn't they just then look at fucking petite, like, women on cam whore websites? You go to Pornhub, you can find girls that are petite. You can find girls that are skinny. Like, if you have a fetish for skinny, small girls that resemble girls that are underage or whatever, you can find them all over the internet. And including in terms of hentai. Why wouldn't you just go watch that? Why would you bother watching these VR streamers? I don't think that you can say that it's just because they're lolicons and they're pedophiles and all this, because you haven't demonstrated that that's the point of what they're doing, of the stream. I don't even understand what they're doing. And unless you can provide me, give me a thorough explanation of exactly what they're doing. What is the content that they're producing? Poll the audience. Ask somebody, because I don't have a fucking clue. And I don't think that you made a good enough argument to justify your point. Because I'm ignorant to this, and it requires an explanation, and I didn't see that you provided it. As it relates to the people defending this, you have to understand that it is several categories of people. It isn't just one. I don't think it's fair to lump all these people together to where we are not, like, are you going to call Count Dankula a fucking pedophile? He's going to be a father. He's married. I've met him. He's an upstanding guy. Are you going to call him a pedophile when he's now defending this? When now he is making a distinction, he just did it recently, makes a distinction between something like cuties, which the left is celebrating, which is, in my view, fucking just pedophile bullshit. Because it's like a satirization where they forgot the satire. It's a critique where they forgot the critique. I had a bunch of people message me. They're like, you gotta review this shit. I don't want to. Especially after I saw those clips on Twitter. They were utterly disgusting. And the issue is that the real question of ethics is around the people that were in it. And this is what I would say to Brittany. When it comes to art, if everyone involved is an adult, you should just vote with your wallet. If it's sick, if it's twisted, if it's disgusting, don't consume it. Or do and critique it and then say, this is sick, this is disgusting, and not only that, it's objectively terrible. And here's the reasons why. I don't think that delving into the realm of banning things is the smart move. Not because necessarily like, oh, I'm here to fucking throw down my gauntlet in the name of defending lolicons, but because you can't actually make the distinction between what is and isn't lolicon. Because even you are here talking about, oh, well, girls that are kind of borderline, that are petite, that are small, and girls that are underage clearly, that are prepubescent. You can understand that, but the issue is when it comes to the law, that isn't what is written up. So you segueing into saying that doesn't justify your point, it only muddles it. You're providing a part of this that is nuanced, and you're able to say that there is no actual standard. But at the same time, you're trying to agree with it. Oh no, this is all child porn. Dealing with a standard that is so broad that it's up to the judge what is or isn't child pornography. Do you think that's a good standard to have? I surely don't think so. I think that when it comes to the law, the best thing to have is as clear and precise a standard as possible, so that's not even in question of guilt or innocence as to the actions taken. That if somebody does something, they can understand fully that what they did was illegal, they can be charged and convicted no matter what, because the law is very clear and that the standard is very precise. And that is the exact problem with the criminal code that exists right now in the United States, and it's never been appealed. As far as I know, it's never been questioned, and the only time that I saw that it was, the judge and everyone involved realized that this was going to be a hard stick. It was going to be a hard case to actually make, and if they did convict this guy, if it went to trial, it would have to be appealed. And there was a huge question of whether it would be illegal, his conduct, him being in possession of lolicon paraphernalia, whether that actually was child porn. In the case, the judge makes the distinction of that. And the prosecutor must have been thanking Christ Almighty that this stupid fuck involved who got charged just pled out like a fucking idiot. That's the surest way of getting a conviction, is you admitting guilt and pleading out. He must have had the dumbest fucking lawyer in the country to do that. Because when it comes to the question of speech, of expression, of consumption, of materials, there is so much that can be done in order to fight that case. There's so much that already exists in terms of precedents from the Supreme Court, revolving around art, revolving around expression, revolving around speech. And yes, those are separate. But the fact is that the clearer you look at them, the more you can conflate them and say that there is no ability for the state to intervene outside of the production of illicit material that has violated somebody's rights. And you distributing that material is an additional violation of that person's rights. Outside of that scope, it's incitement and direct incitement. It's two things. And if you have something more than those two things that are criminal law, criminal precedents, given me. Because I don't see any others but that. Illicit material where somebody's rights have been violated. And direct incitement. Meaning you're there, you have a mob, you have a microphone, your victim is right in front of you. It's very specific, it's very clear, and it's been debated over and over again, and the more times it's been appealed and been litigated and gone to the Supreme Court, the more the precedence has been actually lessened. The scope is lessened. It's become more neat, more tidy, more specific. And in the case of lolicon, it is extremely broad and already questionable, even with judges on the bench questioning the legality of the criminal code, whether it is or is not constitutional. When you have judges questioning that, it's like Andrew Torba says, it's a gray area because it's never been pursued. When it comes to the standard of what is lolicon, even in the case that it is prepubescent girls, and that does exist, the issue then is, does that somehow violate existing standards, existing precedents, or is it all lumped together in one, I've cited in the past, I'd have to look it up again, one area of criminal code? Well, the fact is that there is no distinction. The distinction that's made in Ferber and the other standard that I'm forgetting is specific to a victim. You have to have a victim. There has to be somebody that you can name. There has to be someone that had their rights violated. That is the standard, and I think that should be the moral standard, is if somebody's rights are being violated. Because that is something that you can understand, that you can write into law, that you can write into the criminal code, and is very specific, neat and clean, to deal with people who are violating other people's rights and not violating the rights of somebody who's drawing something, or buying a drawing, or possessing a drawing. You might think it's gross, you might think it's sick, you might think it's having some effect, and this is just, snowballing into the issue of pornography. That's fine. Make it about pornography then. Then you might actually have an argument as to, as it relates to some possible negative effect that it's having on society, on men, what have you. I'm not even saying that I disagree with the idea that it could be having negative effects on men or society, whatever. In my view, you ought to keep it focused on the issue of drag kids, on Drag Queen Story Hour, where you've had convicted fucking rapists and sexual predators and that caught doing that on Cuties, and weird left-wing pro-pedophilia satires to where it's played straight. Stuff like that is being played and being supported by incredibly rich and powerful people. When it comes to a bunch of weirdo lolicons on the internet, no one gives a fuck about them. No one is trying to defend them. No one is going to speak up in their favor or back them in a court case, other than other lolis, or, lolicons I mean specifically, or, people that would otherwise want the issue addressed, because like me, I do not want art to be criminalized where it doesn't involve anyone but the people creating it and the people buying it. There is no third party. There is no child, and there is no you. This is a transaction between two parties. And, I mean, if you have an issue with this being shown on public billboards, maybe that would be a different topic. But the idea of one person creating something and another person buying it, if you don't like it, don't buy it. What does it have anything to do with you? And if it's a question of pornography and what effect it's having, just because it's having an effect doesn't therefore then make the argument for doing something specific that involves the law. If you want to address something and say, well, people should be wary of it, maybe we put, an age gate or some bullshit on Pornhub. Like, I saw people talking about that. Put an age gate on Pornhub. It's like, the fuck is that going to do? Maybe it's going to get the stupid kids, but I don't think it's going to stop anybody. Is it good to have little kids looking at porn and shit? No. I can understand the argument of kids getting access to hardcore pornography being a bad thing, that you don't want little kids getting access to that. But the issue is availability, the limitations of how you could limit the scope of that accessibility, and the fact that it's not my fucking prerogative. You know what it is my prerogative? When I'm a fucking father. And that's the big thing here is kids' access to porn. Where the fuck are the parents? This is the problem, and I'm sure Brittany would probably agree with me, with normies. Is where the fuck are they? It's obviously normie parents and they're not aware of any of this shit. Like, how the fuck are these kids watching cam whores and giving them money on Twitch? How is this even possible? If I had some kid and they're like, yeah, hey dad, give me your credit card so I can go give this thought money on fucking Twitch, I'm gonna be like, yeah, no, it's not happening. Well, I'm actually watching Dr. Disrespect, who's now off Twitch, but, I'm watching him instead. I'm a video game streamer. Well, you're 14, I'm not giving you your credit, my credit card. You can just watch for free, and if you can't do that, then don't. Fuck streaming. Streaming is stupid. When I do streaming, it's stupid. It's not worth spending money, but people still do. Should not have fucking kids taking their parents' credit cards, spending money on this shit. And that should be the standard. It shouldn't have to do, you need to get into the cam whores and all this nonsense. It has to do with parenting. And to me, again, that's a distinction between porn, what effect it has, what should be done about it, and the kids. This is the problem, is the conflation of all of this. I think these are several different issues. And that you can have a different remedy for all of them. Laws are not a scalpel. They are a fucking hammer. They're a sledgehammer. Whenever you create a law, it's never something very precise, very quick, very clean, to where you can cut in and cut out this aspect of criminality. It's just a fucking mountain of bureaucracy, litigation, and bullshit. Just look at the drug laws. I live in New York, and I don't even know if weed is legal in this state. I don't even know. The laws here are so fucking wacky. I legitimately don't know. I'm going to have one of you fucking pothead faggots who live in this state explain it to me in extreme detail. Is it decriminalized? Is it partially legalized? I know it's not fully legalized. What is it? What are the questions around possession, around distribution, around the creation or growing? I have no fucking clue. And that's one example. Laws are rarely precise because the people creating them are doing them for every other conceivable reason other than our benefit. And so when it comes to the issue of law, always try to side with liberty, even when it comes to issues that you don't like. Because you have to question the fucking retards that we elect that are charged with implementing it, and how terrible they are in doing that. So I'm not just saying this to beat up on Brittany as it relates to the legal issue, but I'm just, bringing up something that I talked about in the past, that when it comes to the creation of laws or existing laws, it's never simple. There's never, you're not the one setting the standard. The standard as it relates to what is lolicon, who the fuck knows? The criminal code doesn't specify. It just says underage girls, including drawing. Who determines what the age of a fictional fucking character is? The judge. The jury. And is it being set? No, they're just pleading out to these cases. So there is no precedent. There is no standard. I've mentioned cuties in this, but I haven't really delved into my opinion on that. And the reason I haven't is still a question of whether I'm going to watch it or not. I posited to you in a stream, a few weeks ago of potentially reviewing it. And I don't want to, and there's a bunch of you that say don't do it, and there's a bunch of you that say do it. But I'll give you the quick rundown of what the real issue is, and that is around child labor. It's the question of, is it ethical to have children involved in this? And my answer is no. That's the easy answer that I can give you for this material. If you had adults involved in this, it would still be weird and gross and all that, but I highly doubt that many people would have cared. Much of us would have cared about this as it relates to cuties. I doubt very many of us would have given a shit if adults were doing every aspect of this. The clear ethical line that I think most people are drawing, they're taking issue with this for, is because the people that are gyrating around in all this nonsense in the movie are actually 10, 11 years old. And I would say that that's quite questionable, not just from the perspective of what they're doing and the sexual aspects of what they're doing, but the question of how can you have kids doing this in the first place? Because in the United States, I know this for a fact, that is illegal. It is illegal to do that. And it's why I've said the one example of the one drag kid dancing on a cabaret stage and all that, that is fucking illegal. There have been cases that have gone to the Supreme Court, whether it is underage strip teasing or the distribution of material related to underage strip teasing. All of it is fucking illegal. All of it is unconstitutional. None of it. The creation of it, the viewing of it, the distribution of it, all of it is criminal. So when it comes to the issue of cuties, France is such a fucking nightmare land. I mean, it's no surprise it was made there. That's continental Europe for you. But in the United States, it is absolutely illegal. And the fact that, you have senators being like, well, I'm not sure. Are you fucking kidding me? I know that this is illegal. But the issue is whether the distribution of it here is legal or not. I'm pretty sure it isn't. How is this meeting the Ferber standard? Explain that to me. These are actual children involved. Whether they're American or not is not a distinction made in the Ferber standard. In Ferber, it was the distribution of illicit material of underage girls. I believe it was girls specific. That is illegal. The distribution of those materials is illegal. So as far as I'm concerned, it's why I've said, I don't want to watch it, because I'm watching something that I know and understand is fucking illegal, but it just exists. It's just allowed to exist. Because Netflix is a billion-dollar corporation, and half the fucking country thinks it's brave and stunning to have fucking underage girls, strip teasing. Because we live in clown because we live in clown world. We live in clown world, everyone. And like I say, there are bigger fish to fry than some, all the crossover and all that's going on, all that's involved when it comes to Loli. I think your intention is right, but you are way off mark. You are way, way past the point where your target should be. And that is cuties. That is the drag kids. That is the fucking shit that is involving living, breathing children that live in this fucking country. That is where we should be going after it. That's the thing that I can't stand, is that, Lolicon is the easiest thing to hit because no one will fucking defend it. They will ratio your badly made video because in many ways it's incoherent. But when it comes to mainstream society, bro, no one is going to defend the Lolicons. No one. No one's going to defend them. There is no money there outside of, J-List and some shit in Japan. That's where the money is that. And that's it. And you have 1,001 fucking SJW faggots constantly going after everyone, trying to put them all out of business or shame them out of killing their own market. Those same people are fucking celebrating cuties, are celebrating drag kids, are standing in the way of anyone pursuing criminal litigation against those people, everyone involved. They've bulwarked the entire fucking thing. Loli is the easy fucking target. And it's why people would call you an SJW. And I'm not saying that specific, but I'm saying that's why they would say it. Is because it's an easy fucking target. And the hard target is the obvious, because it involves fucking real children. So I will reiterate before I end this commentary to say that I'll like the video as I say this. I'll like the video to help add some thumbs up to the video that is being ratioed. Because as it relates to the content provided, I think that it is an erroneous argument. I'm not here to say that, oh, you're fucking stupid and blah, blah, blah. It's an erroneously made argument. It's a malformed argument. And I don't think that your intention is ill. I think that you are conflating way too many things. I think that you are not drawing out specific arguments that you could. You're delving into legal issues to where I think you have no idea what you're talking about. And if you did, and I think you refute yourself in this by, like I said, the standard of what is lolicon, you can't even say it yourself. When it comes to law, you have to be the one that sets the fucking precedent. What's the fucking standard, Brittany? If you can't come up with it, then what the fuck is it? The law, as it exists, is already malformed. It's already a problem. And random people are being prosecuted. Even though, like I say, this is being made and distributed here in the United States. Not just in Japan, people importing it. It's being made and sold here. And no one's shutting down those businesses. And the question is, should they? And why? And based on what? And what standard? You know, if somebody draws a petite girl and they put it online, should the fucking federal forces raid their house and put them in jail for 20 years because they're a pedophile, put them on the sex offender registry because they drew a cartoon? Obviously, I don't think you agree with that, because that's the same shit I sent right to Count Dankula to break through. The disgust, that's the problem. I'm fine if you find it disgusting. Dank does, and that's great. Find it disgusting. The question is around the morality and the ethics of it existing, it being consumed, and what the law should be. What should our standards be? Is it you're against it and you find it disgusting? Perfectly fine. That's a perfectly fine standard to hold. You have your own platform, like Andrew Torba, and you want to ban it? Well, then you're not really a free speech or free expression platform. You're full of shit. And as I said, as it was with him, he went crazy and just started banning everything. And his platform, as far as I know, fell apart. It's a very easy pivot to go from lolicon is wrong, we should ban it, to I'm going to ban everything I disagree with. For Andrew Torba, that was like 6 months. And that's a problem because it's not a coherent standard. It's not actually a morally justifiable position to take. Is I determine what I consider to be disagreeable, to where our terms of service doesn't even exist. Like, that's the whole reason for Gab was that Twitter was arbitrarily enforcing their fucking terms of service, and Andrew Torba went on to do the exact same fucking thing. So does that make Gab any better than Twitter? No, it makes it worse. Because he's a fucking hypocrite who sold his entire platform on being the opposite of what it became. He's worse and his platform is worse. And it's why one of the reasons why I've questioned whether I should leave it behind. Because I don't like him and I don't like his shit platform. It makes me feel like a fucking hypocrite for just being on it. But I just leave it alone because whatever, I know I have people following me on it. The comparison, though, that I can make between Andrew and you, Brittany, is the fact that neither one of you have a coherent view on this. You don't have a coherent view on what your standard is, what your problem is, what you think should be done. Your problem is, oh, it's gross. Okay, fine, you find it gross. I find plenty of shit gross. It doesn't mean, therefore, I need anything done about it. And then it begs the question, naturally, what should be done? And when you start getting into legal issues, fuck, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you thinking? You're going to create a monster. And it's a monster that's not, in my view, addressing the real moral concern, which is fucking cuties and all this other drag kid story out shit. That's the obvious, because as far as I can tell, that shit is all illegal. I mean, drag queen story hour, whatever. But drag kids and the cabaret shit and cuties, no fucking question. I have no doubt in my mind that that shit is all illegal and not in any way backed by the Constitution. No effing way. Not a single iota of doubt in my mind to that. It's why I haven't watched cuties, and I'm afraid to. It's because I think it's illegal. You never bring up criminal code, legal issues if you aren't going to lay it out. If you aren't going to go through it and make a coherent or a cogent argument as it relates to the particular topic. You saying, oh, well, this might be illegal in Australia and America. Who gives a fucking shit if it might or may not be? Is it? Why? What is the fucking standard? Get into that. You say in your own video that the guy you talk about in your own anecdote, he fucking pleaded out. Well, what the fuck is that? That's not an actual conviction based on that law. It didn't go to trial. That's somebody pleading out, likely to a lesser charge. I agree with certain parts of this video. I'm fine with certain parts of this video, but like it was with Count Dankula, just all over the place, making a malformed argument, saying, okay, bring on the hate. If you disagree, go ahead and thumb it down, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, don't do that, because it's like, to me, that is you conceding that you don't really know what you're arguing, that you find something disgusting. This happened with Lindsay What's-Her-Face, where she said she went off on like a crazy tangent. It's why I stopped following her. She went off some crazy fucking tangent, I think, about porn. And it was like, fucking what? And she couldn't defend it. She couldn't defend any of the shit she was saying. She just was like, oh, I feel this way. It was like Andrew Torba as well. Like, I feel this way. Therefore, like, I don't have to make an argument. Go all the way back to fucking ancient Athens, where in the street, Socrates says, well, why? And I'm there as a demagogue going, well, I feel this way. You find that convincing, Socrates? I feel therefore. That doesn't mean shit. Having a feeling is fine. Finding Lolicon disgusting is perfectly fine. And when it comes to Lolicon, you can go out in public and say, I find Lolicon disgusting, and 999,999,000, all the rest of it, are going to say, what the fuck is a Lolicon? You're going to have 1%, 2% of people that are going to have any fucking idea what hentai, Lolicon is, all this. And out of that utter fringe minority that understand what it is, that have any idea what it is, you say Lolicon is disgusting, like 70% of them are going to say, yes, I also find it disgusting. So to me, it's like, it's such a micro issue. It is so microscopic in terms of a concern. Because like I say, at its worst, when it comes to, let's say, the pedophiles that are beating off the hentai, look at that little girl, 500-year-old vampire, which coincidentally enough. And she talks about, she cites one loli vampire. I just today changed my avatar on Twitter as a loli vampire. Just today. Oh, man. The funny coincidences of life. Just so funny. The coincidences. But who cares? It doesn't involve anyone. And there is all these different issues involving living, breathing children, including the Twitch issue, which I'm completely on board with. I find it wrong too. But the fucking question is, Twitch is this billion-dollar corporation. What the fuck can be done? I don't use it. Like, what else can I do? And if you have a solution, offer it. I'm more than willing to hear it because I agree. Anyways, I'll stop there. Thank you for listening.